Okay, so what we're going to do now is we are going to work on the side. Now you can see these ridges here over here on the side. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm going to do those as geometry. Because this is a hero asset, I just want to push the geometry a little bit more, just to really get like some nice pieces in here. So what I will do is this overall layout over here, I will cut it out of our existing shape. After we've done that, I will most likely use like a boolean or something like that to cut out these shapes. And then what I will do is I will just start optimizing it, which is a pain to do, but that's something that I will also do. Now, before we do the optimizing, I will probably also create a boolean here because it's easier for me to first of all just cut out all kinds of booleans that I want. And then just optimize where I will show you how to optimize it, and then I will just kick in the time lapse because optimizing is very repetitive and time consuming. So for this shape, you basically want to go in here and let's have a look. So I'm just gonna follow this. So I'm just looking how far away it is from every edge, and based upon that, I can press Ctrl R and I can say, okay, this one is roughly. Let's say this far away from this. Of course, we need to edit it a little bit because our version is thinner than the version that our reference is from. But we can say, okay, so one edge over here, then there is another one where it's around, let's say this far, and then here it's around this far, and then from the top it's around. Let's do the top this far so that this and this is fairly even. So now we have like a simple shape like this. Now there is a cut over here, and it looks like the cut happens from, actually it happens from exactly this shape, which is nice. And then we can just decide how big we want it. We want to have it big enough so that we have place for this little console piece. Because there will be a focal point on this, because a lot of detail is in here. Like most of this is not very detailed, but the bottom is very detailed. And then we have this area that is very detailed. So you like to have your camera close to that. So let's say we have something like this, and let's see what we have now. We have something like this. Okay, I think that is looking pretty good. I'm just double checking. Of course, there need to be round corners on here, but don't worry about that. We will go ahead and do that after we've done an extrusion, because it's easier to do that after. Okay, do we have enough space here? I just want to make double sure. I think what I want to do is I just want to actually move this down a little bit, because I like to have it a little bit more cramped so that it is a little bit like close together. We can move it later on, but I think that should be fine. So now that we've done this, as you can see in our reference, the way that it goes is it extrudes out with like a little bevel. And I think the easiest way for us to do that is, first of all, whenever I do an insert, I just press Q and reset transforms in my object mode. And then I'm just going to go ahead and start by pressing an inset. Yeah, it holds up. Don't worry about where the edges like warp a little bit. This is quite normal, as long as the corners are good. And then after you've done that, you can go ahead and you can move this out. And let's move it out. Yeah, here. So it doesn't need to be, maybe even less. Let's click and then hold shift to do more precise movement. Let's have a look. I'm just having a look at my reference. You know what? I think I want to go even less. So click. It doesn't always register, which is a bit annoying. So click, move this in. Yeah, there we go. Let's go for something like this. Now, the next thing that we need to do is we need to create all these round corners that you can see over here. And I want to do those in geometry. So let's start with this one. It's very easy. The reason that I extruded it out is because now I can select this edge over here. I can press Ctrl B. And I can simply, it's after a few segments, turn this around. So this one, on purpose, I did this one separately. So let's do 0.65 probably. And now for all of these, because they will all be the same roundness, we can just do them all at the same time. Just to save some time. Like that. Have a look at it so that you can see most of them. And then just do Ctrl B and let's move this down to, let's say, how many segments do I have? 4 or 3? 3. So 3 segments over here. And that will just create some roundness. Now you can see that it instantly breaks a lot of the geometry. For now, I'm not going to fix all of it. I'm just going to press K. And I'm simply going to press a cut like this. Same thing as that we've done above. Press a cut like this. And maybe like a cut like over here. And then move this down a little bit. And the reason I'm doing it this way is because I first want to do... Also press a cut here. I first want to do my booleans. And after I've done those, because then the geometry will be very messy, I just want to do a cleanup pass, pretty much. So we got this one. That's looking fine. It is ready for booleans. If you want to go to your auto smooth, you can lower this auto smooth so that so set it to like 21, so that it's not trying to smooth that thin corner. So let's see. We got this. This will be a separate model, so I don't care about that. I'm just caring about everything that is in my base. So that's all fine. Now let's go ahead and let's go to the other side. To the other side, we are just gonna go for like something basic like that. Turning that into a hyperpoly is a real pain, actually, because it's so many shapes. So I just want to see, is there a better way that I can do this? I don't think so. I think we just want to do this as a boolean. Yeah, let's just do it as a boolean and then we'll see how it works. So for those things, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how booleans work. Basically, if we press Shift A boolean, create a cube. Very simple. A boolean is cutting out one shape from another shape. Now this is very handy to very quickly create complicated shapes, for example, or to just cut out annoying shapes. For example, cutting out a cylinder from a flat square. The only thing about it is that booleans don't always work, so they are a bit messy to work with, and they really break your geometry. So you really need to like go in and completely fix your geometry after. So for these pieces, what I want to do is I just want to go ahead and basically just create like a cube like this, and I'm just going to duplicate this 50 times or whatever. So I'm gonna go in here. I'm gonna start with like these, with the first two cubes, and I probably want to do this just above where we have the end of our piece, which is no problem. So let's just go ahead and scale this in. Say we go for, see, so they span across. So I actually want to make them a bit bigger, because it looks like that they, in my reference, they span across the, here if we have like two of them, what we can do is we can place them, and remember, this is going to be cut out. So this is going to be your trim in between that will still stay as geometry. So you want to place them, move them here, maybe scale them down like a little bit. Let's do something like this. Let's move this down, so this is where the end is happening, so that is fine. So let's move it up a little bit so that we have like a little trim here. We have a little trim here, and that's kind of like how you need to see it. So now what you can do is you can press Ctrl J, and Ctrl J will simply join them together. And then we just want to go ahead and, you know what, I know a better way. So what we can do is, if we go up here to modifiers, there is a modifier and it is called the array modifier. Now the cool thing about an array modifier is you can set a angle. So we want to set it on the z-axis. So if we set this to 0 and this to 1, you can see that it will just evenly, here if I move this up, and then set the count up, it will evenly just duplicate your model. So with this, what we can say is, we can say like, okay, I want to have this many, and then I'm just gonna go set my count up, 1.2. I kind of want, that's annoying. I cannot do 10 because then it's too small. Because then if I go for like 1, maybe I can 1.1. Yeah, okay, maybe this works. 1.15. Yeah, okay, that's not too small. So let's go for something like 1.1. 1.155. Let's go for 1.155 so that we still have a thin trim around here. And we have the trim around here, and then we just have all these thin little lines here. So this is now one big piece. Now if you just press apply, it becomes one object. So very simple. Let's say that this is going to be our first boolean. Now before we continue, I just want to create my second boolean. And that one is going to be this piece over here. So here, this is like a good view. So we are simply going to cut out the cylinder over here. And then we'll take it from there. So we will make that all look nice and interesting. So for the cylinder, it's just about the scale. So if we go ahead and press Shift A, mesh, and create a cylinder. Now we can decide. So this is going to be the main focus point. It's always on screen pretty much. Even if you look at it from here or from here, it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to push my vertices a lot. I'm going to go for like 64 because I cannot afford this to look low poly. If we can see edges on this, we failed because then it just looks bad. So I'm going to rotate this and hold Ctrl to snap rotate it. And after you've done that, you can go to your front view. And with our front view, we can go ahead and we can start scaling this. And just have a look at your reference, how far away it is from all the edges. And based upon that, you can like make a guess. So it looks like it's a bit further away down here and a bit closer to the top, stuff like that. So here's the top. Let's scale this up a bit more. Let's see. So here we hit the top. And then over here, it is quite close to this edge. Like that. Quite far down. I'm just going to scale this in a little bit more. Here. And then imagine that we are going to cut this out. So we can move it after, although it's a little bit more annoying, but it is possible. So I think that is looking... Maybe move it a little bit more to the side. Yeah, I think for the rest that is looking correct. Yeah, that should do the trick. So we got this one. Now, what we are going to do now is I'm just going to go ahead and press Alt-I while selecting this object. Alt-I and Alt-U, basically all it does is it will just isolate or it will hide unselected and then unhide all. So Alt-I, hide unselected. What I'm going to do is Booleans, they don't often like it when you have open faces like this. Because then they don't know how far they need to cut. So what I tend to do is I tend to just select this. And I tend to then temporarily just go Q. And then do like a new edge from faces. It doesn't even care about if the geometry is clean often. It just doesn't like it when it's cut. Now over here, same thing. Q. And new edge from faces. So this is now all one big closed piece of geometry. Once you've done that, you do need to make sure that you are setting the boolean roughly to how deep you want the cut to be. So if I do something like this already, I don't need to edit it later on. I can just be sure that once we've done this, it will look fine. Now if we go over here, this one is open for interpretation because we are going to edit it later on. But let's say we got something like this. So let's give this a go. Let's start by just selecting our base and we are going to try out and see how the booleans work before we continue with all the smaller booleans down here. So if we go to Alt modifier, you can literally go to boolean. Once you select that, you have three options. You have intersect, union, and difference. Intersect is what is it? Intersect is that it cuts out this shape from this shape or something in that direction. I never use it honestly. Union is that it combines the booleans together into one big mesh. And difference is that it cuts out our booleans compared from the rest. And that's the one that you use most often, difference. So you select difference, you go to object, and you select, for example, the cylinder. Now you can already see that it has created a line around here. So let's see how that works. Let's press apply, select a cylinder, and let's hide it for now just by pressing H. And there you go. That looks like a nice clean cut, so I'm happy with that. Now this one I'm a bit more worried about, so let's see. Boolean, difference, select this, press apply, and hide. Huh, okay. No errors, nice. That's looking really good. If you've worked with booleans before, you know what I mean when I'm surprised that it works in one go. So yeah, it has some cleanup as you can see here. So it has just lots of loose vertices and that's the problem. But this is looking pretty good. So after this, later on we will clean that up. And what we will do is the back faces, you can barely even see those. So we will just literally leave those open. And we will just create like a capsule around this. Where we will create all of our details. So we got those. Now I will continue with my last bits of Boolean over here. And I'm gonna go ahead, and for that I want to create a... if you just have a look. Let's go ahead and let's create a cube. Let's then round the corners of that cube. Turn it into a slight bevel, and then we can cut out the shape right away. Maybe we can even already add some supporting loops to this, but that's something to try out. So Shift A, Mesh, Cube. I'm going to pick a long side in order to test this out. So let's just scale this down. Scale this down like this. Let's move this in. Yeah, we just want to create this like from the long side. Let's see. Keep some space in between here. So let's say something like this looks pretty good. Now, next thing that I want to do is I just want to decide on my thickness. I want to go quite thin, something like this. And I will start by, let's see. Well, actually, let's just do a test run before we do anything else. So let's say we have it around this far in. Then what we're going to do is I keep pressing that button, sorry. Press 3 and go into edit mode, select this, move this in. And then what we're going to do is we are going to start by selecting these 4 corners over here. Just press Q and reset transforms in your object mode. Yeah, and then these corners we're going to make round like this. Just press Alt-I, and the reason I want to do that is because it's easier for me to select. I'm just going to select these 2 end vertices. Press Alt-X to make sure that you select everything. And then just press Q and press Merge at Center. So this will nicely just merge it at the center of these 2 vertices. Like that. So we don't need to worry about that. Now the next thing that we need to do, if we do Alt-U, is we need to select... Why do I keep pressing that button? Object mode. Select this face, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to click and make this wider. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to my top view, press Alt X. I'm just going to select one side, move it in, select the other side, move it in. There we go. So now if we just do a quick pivot, we can see that now that creates like a little bit of a bevel. You can choose yourself how far in that we want this to be. So let's go for something like this. I want to have this quite subtle. Then I'm going to go to edit mode, select this and just move this in as far as I can. Something like this. Yeah, see? You can see from the back. So that should give us a correct cut. I'm just going to give it a quick try. So just do like a Boolean difference, select this, press apply. Perfect. Okay, so let's just undo that because I'm not done with it yet. So we now know that we have these pieces. Now what we can do is we can start by placing them. So yeah, they might be a little bit on the thick side, but not too much. So just have a look at your reference. So it looks like that there's one here. They are a little bit thick, aren't they? Maybe like scale them in a little bit. There we go. No one notices. So we have one that is going to be around here. Then we have one that is just below the bend. And I will have another one that is around here. We will scale these incorrectly later. Or we will scale those in correctly, not incorrectly, later on. English. So many words. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to... Actually, let's delete this. Let's grab this one. And let's instead do like an array modifier. And we want to set this again on the z-axis. Start with 1. And let's see, we need 1, 2, 3. Or 4, it doesn't really matter, whatever works for us. So I want to move these up. Yeah, you see, I think I want to go for like 5. I want to move these up, and I still want to keep some space at the top for our console. So let's do 6.5. 6.8. There we go, see? So we have still some space over here that we can use for this piece where we have our cables and everything. But it still looks like it's quite close together. So having those things done, you can press apply on the array modifier. You can go ahead and go into edit mode. Just select these vertices over here. And when you see me do this, I just press Alt X, just remember that. Move this one halfway like this. Select this one, Alt X. Move this one around here. And just to make sure that's correct, I'm just going to duplicate this down again. Just to make sure that it's exactly the same scale. So now you can select these pieces, press Ctrl J to join them all together. And there we go, so those are ready for booleans. Now let's hope that it still works. Let's select our base. Go to the boolean modifier. Select these objects. Press apply. And hide. Nice. Perfect. Okay. As you can see, there's a lot of cleanup that needs to be done. And we will go ahead and we will address that cleanup in the next chapter. But if we just do like an Alt-U, select all of these booleans. And I do like to always keep them. I find that I sometimes can still use them. So select them. Right click. Move to collection. New collection. Boolean. Press OK. And now you can just hide them. Hide the collection so that we don't need to worry about it anymore. But that's looking pretty good. So, in the next chapter, what we will do is we will do stuff like deleting these sites. I will do that now. And then we will just go ahead and continue with the cleanup, which will most likely also involve like a little time lapse. So let's go ahead and continue with that in the next chapter.